Okay, whoever listens to the news, over the weekend there was a major earthquake in Morocco, and over 2,000 people were killed already, reported dead. And when such a thing happens, we have to really take a few moments and think, because as the Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva, he writes, "Afal pisha shofar gzeras hakosov," even though it's gzeras hakosov, remez yesh ba. There's a remez in the shofar, and the remez is uri yishena mishinaschem. We have to wake up from our sleep, and that's especially appropriate on the first day of Slichos, when many people say Slichos very late at night, and it might be hard to wake up. That's on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, all of us, each one of us in your own level, we're a little bit sleeping, and we have to try to wake ourselves up. And when you hear such an event, it's supposed to shake us up a little bit. An earthquake shakes people up, and even the name Ridat Adama, it shakes us up. And hopefully, if we're shaken up a little bit, then we can change. Because a person doesn't change unless they're shaken up, right? If things are just what they call mei menuchos, things are just going business as usual, so people don't change. They stay the way they are. The only way a person changes is if he's a little bit shaken up. So I want to share with you a story, but first, Gemara, the famous Gemara about Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva was traveling, and he needed a place to sleep that night. And he went around to the town, knocked on each door, and nobody opened the door. Right? So he said, "Koma adav rachman letov avid," and in the end, he wound up sleeping in the field. We know the story. His candle went out, and his donkey died, got killed, and his rooster got killed. And in the end, it was an ace because the town was ransacked, and he alone remained alive, as it seems from that story. So I was thinking about this story, is that when you think about Rabbi Kiva, how he was at that time, he's probably very tired traveling the whole day, and he's knocking on doors from door to door to door, and nobody opens up the door. I can tell you from my personal experience, right, fundraising, when you knock on a door, it's like very humbling experience, and especially if you're not really asking for money here, you just need a place to sleep. The person's very tired. It's really, really a really difficult experience to be turned down. Actually, it happened to me this morning at the coastal. I come out and sleep last night because my Shabbos nap was a little too long. My wife didn't wake me up, and I couldn't fall asleep last night. So I needed 10 minutes on a stender before Slichos. And I went around to a few people. I said, "Can I borrow your stender for 10 minutes?" And everybody said no. So I was like, oh, really need to sleep. And it really hit home, this Gemara about Rabbi Kiva. When a person really is in need of something, he's in need of chesed, and you ask for something, you become very vulnerable. And at that time, it's a tremendous chesed to, as it were, to stelsu, to come towards them at that very moment. And again, I'm not chas v'shalom, I'm not saying anything bad about the people who didn't lend me their stender. I'm sure each and every one of them had a good reason. But to understand that when the essence of chesed, when someone is coming to you with a need and turning to you, they're saying, really, I'm very vulnerable. I'm lacking something, like Rabbi Kiva. He has anywhere to sleep. He's knocking on doors, and nobody opens up the door. So it's an extremely vulnerable time when a person is asking for something, and we have to be really, really careful at that time to understand where they're coming from and to understand the ultimate importance of chesed and helping other people. I'm not sure I'm really allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. As you know, that doesn't bother me so much. I was thinking is that it's like so strange that this town got destroyed afterwards, right, by these robbers, right? Ken Zain, maybe the Midas Adin, right? Maybe there was a Gzar Din already on the town. Obviously there was, right? Because it happened, right? And they had an opportunity to mavatal the Gzar Din if they would have done a chesed for Rebbe Kiva. But because everybody in the town, nobody was willing to host him, perhaps we could say such a thing. Because we know the Shari Tshuva says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's midas are always our Mida Keneged Mida. Hashem acts with us Mida Keneged Mida. If we want, during these days of tshuva, before Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Tshuva, if we want to be Ma'or Hashem's Rachamim, we ourselves have to be Ma'or Rachamim, right? And the more we're Ma'or Rachamim to others, the more the Hashem Ma'or Rachamim to ourselves. And that's what Chazal tell us. If a person is Ma'or his Rachamim, and he doesn't go with Midas Adin, it could be, they didn't want Rebbe Kiva in his house or whatever it was, but a person is Ma'or Rachamim, so the divine Rachamim is around. I saw actually Rav Zilberstein in a sefer Chashuki Chemed. He brings an interesting question from the Ben Yehuda, right? He says that I understand the donkey is dead, right? It's not going to do tchias amazim on a donkey, and the tabernacle is also dead. But why did Rebbe Kiva relight the candle? Right? It's a good question, no? So maybe you'll say like he didn't have one of those, like at the wedding they have those candle holders. Well, first of all, he had to have something to light it with, right? Because it wasn't burning all the time. He took 2 rocks and put them together, right? And he most probably had a candle holder, to keep it so it wouldn't blow out. So why don't you just relight the candle? So the Ben Yehuda says something very interesting. He says that after all these strange things happened, right, that he didn't get a lodging in the whole town, and the donkey died, and then the rooster died, and then the candle went out, he took it to the Simon min Hashemayim. And he understood that it wasn't supposed to relight this candle. This was the Mahalach of Hashem. And Rav Zilberstein goes through a whole back and forth. Are you allowed to do that? Is it nichosh? Is it not nichosh? What are you allowed to do? But certainly, Lamaisa, Bakak Kabalti from my Rabbanim and Kak, the Chafetz Chaim said, is when something major happens in the world, right? We're supposed to be ma'ar ourselves and think, this is happening for a reason. Because Baruch Hu is killing 2,000 people and shaking up the world, then there must be something to think about, and it's not nichosh to say such a thing. Rav Sternbach has said many times, there's a Medrash Tehillim, Medrash Shachar Tov. I believe it's Chaf Gimel. The Medrash Shachar Tov says, it's not Chaf Gimel, no. The pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu touches the world and it shakes. So look up what pasuk it said. Perhaps it's in Chaf Gimel and bring that pasuk. But it says that before the Gula comes, before Hashem brings the Mashiach, so part of Chevli Mashiach is shaking up the world. Yeah? Shaking up the world. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing that He has control over everything, and really, even the ground underneath our feet is not safe ground. And the point of this really is to make us think, right? As the Chafetz Chaim said, look, all these people in Morocco, although they were interviewing religious Jews who were in the time of the earthquake, but all of that is all directed to us. The Gemara in Yevamah says that everything happens for Klal Yisrael. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is shaking up the world a week before Rosh Hashanah, it's really to shake us up. So I'm leaving you with this point today, right? Is that when someone asks you for a chesed, whatever it might be, right? They might be asking for money, they might be asking for a place to sleep, they might be asking for a favor, right? What? A standard to sleep on, yeah, right? Be very, very careful, because that person is very, very vulnerable, right? Number one. But number two, the amount that you're ma'or yourself to do chesed for other people, even if it is a little bit difficult, right? That is the amount that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be ma'or to do chesed for you. And all of us need chesed, right? All of us are in the red, as they say. The Vilna Gaon writes in Mishlei, he says, never daven based on your own zchuyos, right? Because you lose. If we go with our own zchuyos, there's no way you'll get what you want, right? But if you daven for rachamim, yeah, so Kodesh Baruch Hu's rachamim is infinite, but that's a tefillah that's eino chazeres regam, right? And the Yisoda Dvarim, it goes to Sfiras Keter, that such a tefillah touches Sfiras Keter, and it's a very, very powerful tefillah, right? As powerful it is to daven for rachamim, right? It's even more powerful to be osik in rachamim. The person is osik in rachamim, whether it be in yanim of chesed, whether it be in yanim of nosebol chavero. What's it called? There was one of the Avrechim left the call, went back to America, and he was here this week, and I took him to Rizvil Orbach. He went to many, many Gedolim to get brachas because he's not well. So he said, out of all the Gedolim he went to, he got the most chizuk from Israel Orbach. And I watched what was going on. And it was so reminiscent of being with Shlomo Zalman Orbach. Like, he was so concerned about this Avreich, right? He was like, his own son was suffering. Rabbi Israel never had children, right? But when the Avreich told him what was going on, he looked at him with like tears in his eyes. I've said this story many times, that one of the most powerful moments I ever had with a gadol was when I went to Shlomo Zalman Orbach, and I told him my problems, and I asked the many yisurim we were having, and I asked him, what should we do? He said, Ani lo yodea, aval ani ma'od merachem alecha. And he started crying, right? And this is a very, very powerful thing. Remember once, who was it, from the Har-Nof massacre, Rabbi Kapinski, right? 2 years before the Har-Nof massacre, his daughter was just tragically died. And he did a lot of things. He started doing a lot of things. And he told me that a lot of people came and told him their problems. And he said, like, what do they want from me? I'm not a psychologist. What can I do for them? And I told him, I said, all they want is that you should listen. Yeah. They want you to listen and feel for what they're going through. And if you do that, right, that is one of the biggest chasadim that a person can do. And the amount of divine rachamim, the amount of divine mercy that such an act is tremendous, right? It's really, really tremendous. So just to sum up, we're saying over here, Hashem shook up the world in a very big way. It's not the first time. A few months ago, there been past couple of years, there have been many, many serious earthquakes all over the world. Yeah, Hashem is shaking up the world. The Gemara of Yevamot says everything that happens in the world happens for Klal Yisrael. Chavetz Chaim said it's meant to shake us up. We're meant to be shaken up now, right? Each and every one of us has to think, where's the area that I really need to work on, right? And we brought this Gemara about Rebbe Kiva. Rebbe Kiva went to a town. He asked people around to help him. Nobody's willing to help him. He goes, sleeps in the field. The whole town is ransacked. We suggested it could be that there was a Gzar Din. There was definitely a Gzar Din in the town. And had someone responded with Rachamim, right? Chazal tell us that when a person acts with Rachamim, that's more divine Rachamim. So it could have been that the Gzera would have been annulled on that town. Yeah? And we should know that every time that someone asks us for a chesed, the more that we get dig deep inside ourselves and find Rachamim, right? The first thing when someone asks you for a chesed is try to feel what they're going through. Right? Try to feel what they're going through. And even this earthquake in Morocco, right? Just think about these thousands and thousands of people who have homes and with relatives who have been niftar, right? Self should arouse divine rachamim with us, but every time we have an interaction with somebody else who's in need, yeah, and they come to us and they turn to us, we have to know it's from Shemayim. Min Shemayim, this person has been sent. And even if you can't give a person a lot of money, remember, when you're collecting, right, someone will give you a lot of money and just like destroy you. And someone give you a small amount of money and be mechazik you, it's worth much more to get a small amount of money and the chizuk, right? Because that gives you power to keep going on. Remember the second time I went to Chutz La'aretz, so I was by somebody's house who I was in yeshiva with, and it's about 30 people there. And he said, Barabim, he said, like, you're destroying the state of Israel. You just sit around and warm benches, right? And etc. And it was in public. And I for a week, I couldn't talk afterwards. It was just such a humiliation, right? Afterwards, I got a little bit more used to it, thicker skinned. But the point is that when you do something like that, you're just destroying the person. Masha'en Kain, yeah? Masha'en Kain, a person, if you give somebody $18 or whatever, even $1, and say, listen, I really, you're doing such great things. I really wish I could help you more, but this is what I'm able to do now. That really builds the person to a tremendous extent and gives them the ability to keep going and to do that. So each and every one of us in our own tchum, in our own areas that we have to work on, but certainly you want to find favor in the eyes of parents. Just be nice to their children. That's badik u'manusa, And during these days, we're all trying to find favor in Hashem's eyes. The more we can have rachmanis on other Jews, and especially tefillah, you daven for someone else. Don't just daven, throw it in, but really feel for what they're going through. We have this in the campaign, so I asked we people who donated $1,000 or more, dying for them in the coastal. I asked everyone, tell me a little bit about the situation. Tell me about the person. Tell me what they're going through. And some of the stories were like just so shattering. A kid in jail went off the derech, and somebody who had cancer and can't function, and this and a divorce. But when you really feel for what they're going through, totally different experience. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach told me, he said, really, you shouldn't daven refrain for someone unless you know the person. You shouldn't just throw names in there. Because when you're coming in front of the king, if you don't feel passionate about the request, it's not befitting the king's honor. So we daven, when we help people, feel for what they're going through, be passionate, be empathetic, like Shlomo Zalman and his son Rav Israel. And it's a tremendous, tremendous thing. The rachamim that you stir up within yourself, that rachamim goes up to Shemayim and it just comes back down, right? The Zohar says like that. Every shefa that you make, it goes up, comes back down. That's why Lashon Hara is so bad. When you speak Lashon Hara, it creates ruach hatumah that goes l'mal and it comes back down to you, the ofen neira, right? It's the same thing with davar tov. When a person has rachamim on other Jews, so it comes back down, and it fills a person's life with rachamim. So we should be zoche, see Hashem's rachamim. Amen.